Hi everyone, my name is Christina and I'm an implementation consultant at Prosymmetry. This will be part one of reviewing the general settings tile in Tempus resource. In this video, we will specifically be walking through the global tab within general settings, where administrators can find basic configuration options for their Tempus environment. In Tempus, you can set up display options there, define formatting, choose available datasets, and much more. So let's get started. To get to general settings, we will go to admin settings and then this green general settings tile. Again, in this video, we will be reviewing the global tab, but as a note, this is the only tab we will not cover in this series is this resource request tab, because that process and its configuration is covered in a separate video. So let's walk through these settings in the global tab. The first four configurations offer ways to define how certain things will be displayed throughout your system, like your date format. So you can choose how you want dates to be displayed, and here are your options there. Next, you'll choose your cost currency for how do you want your financials and resource rates to be displayed. So we have a number of different currency options. Next is how do you want your numbers to be formatted and displayed throughout Tempus. So here are your options there. And then finally, you will choose your language. The next group of settings are all related to how do you want your allocation grids to function. So I will be jumping back and forth between this screen and the single project allocation grid to show you what they mean. So the first one, Available Project Allocations tab, this is going to allow you to define whether you want your allocation grids to allow for allocations at the resource level, the task level, or both, which is recommended. What this means is, do you want to allow for your allocation grid to have this group by option where you can group assignments by the resource level, like we're seeing here, or at the task level to roll up the assignments underneath your custom tasks or generic tasks, whichever you use. Next is choosing the default assignment type and what's allowable in your allocation grid. So do you want to have planned allocations be the default assignment type, actual allocations, or both? So in our allocation grid, we can see that I am defaulted to planned allocations, but I could choose there to default to actual or have planned and actual both defaulted in my allocation grids to make assignments in. The next setting down is choosing which of those data sets or allocation types are actually available in your allocation grid. So typically we will have or recommend that you have both selected here so that you can toggle between planned, actual, or both here in your allocation grids. Next, you will choose your available data sets in your allocation grid. So whether you want the allocation data set to be only available to make assignments in, the demand data set, which is a kind of a pre-planning data set you can use to compare later, or both. So in your allocation grids, we will see if both are enabled, you have a drop-down option here to toggle between your allocation data set and demand data set. If you only had one or the other selected, you would not have a drop-down here. The next setting here allows you to choose how you want the system to calculate the allocation unit of cost. So this can be based on your resource's default rate, or the other options here are actually assignment attributes. So you can have the cost unit be calculated based on a cost per job, which is very common with professional services teams. So what we're really talking about here is when you're in an allocation grid and you're toggled on this cost unit, how do you want the cost to be calculated? Is it based on your resource's default rate that is the same across any piece of work or project, or should it be based on some kind of assignment attribute like a specific rate per year or per job? So once assignment attributes are created in your attribute management tile, they would be available here as long as they are a currency type of attribute to pull in. Next is Allow API to modify all data sets. So when working with the API for integrations, this toggle would allow you to work with disabled data sets. For more information on that, I would reach out to your customer experience representative. Next is copy allocation / demand dataset. So this will give you the ability to copy data from the allocation dataset to the demand dataset and vice versa if you are using both datasets. So you can disable this if you are only using one dataset, but if you are using both, it would give you this copy button here, which is allowing you to copy data between each dataset. Going back to our tab, the next one down is allowing negative allocations, which just means that you can enter planned allocations as negative numbers if you would like to, if your organization does that. Next is mode of entry. This was where you can choose which allocation modes of entry you will enable for your end users. So this will change what the users see in their allocation grids as far as what units are available here to allocate in. Okay, next is project management view. So here you can determine which views in your project management grids, I've got that opened up here, are available in the top here. So specifically what we're talking about are the Kanban view, the grid view, and the Gantt view to view your projects. The next setting down is enforce build team. This is where you can choose whether you want to enforce the use of the build team feature when allocating on your projects. Build team is a feature that essentially allows you to limit the available resources who can be put on a project. By default, this feature is not enforced, but this toggle would make it so. For more information on the build team feature and its uses, I would recommend using our help center. The next setting down is exclude proposal projects. So this will exclude any project marked yes with the system project attribute called is proposal. So I actually have a view in my project management tab that is filtering on any projects in my system that are marked yes for this system attribute and therefore have this little P icon showing that it's a proposal project. So when this setting within your global tab is toggled on, the system is going to exclude those projects marked proposal from all allocation grids, and the allocations on those projects will not be included in your heat map calculations. So very important if you are using proposal projects and you want those excluded throughout your system until you are ready to officially mark them as no longer a proposal project and part of your overall portfolio, make sure this setting is toggled on so they are fully excluded. Next is excluding unapproved assignments. So this would exclude any allocations requests or assignment requests that are in a pending state if you are using the resource request process. So that means those allocations, until they are approved or managed in some way and are no longer in a pending state, they are excluded from your resources heat map calculations. So in my allocation grid here, I actually have a pending assignment for Christopher Ortiz. So this assignment would be excluded from his overall heat map calculation until it is approved or managed in some way. All right, the next setting down is working weekends. So this setting, when it's toggled on, allows users to add time and FTE to weekend days at the daily level. If you want to use this feature and want more information on working weekends and its use cases, I would definitely recommend reaching out to your customer experience representative and using our help center as well. Next is auto calculate capacity. So when this is toggled on, it will ensure that when you are editing a resource's capacity values in their resource record, the capacity values in time will automatically be calculated in FTE and vice versa. So for example, let's go into a resource's capacity record. So I'm looking at Christopher Ortiz and I'm toggled onto their capacity center here. If I want, for example, next week, I know that Christopher is going to be at half time. He's only going to be working 20 hours that week. And I want that reflected in FTE as well. I want to make sure that the auto calculate is turned on here. And when I click save, I can see that FTE has been reduced down to 0.5. This setting in general settings ensures that that auto calculate option that I just toggled on manually would be always toggled on. Some organizations don't want that automatically toggled on. They don't necessarily want time and FTE to impact each other. But if you do and you want that automatically toggled on, make sure it's toggled on within your global tab within general settings. Next is enable for decimal places. This allows users to see and enter values with up to 4 decimal places in the capacity screen and all of your allocation grids as well. Next down is allow multiple assignments. This would allow users to assign the same resource to the same task multiple times, and therefore an assignment ID would be created for each assignment so that you can differentiate between the two. For more information on allowing multiple assignments and its use cases and potential implications, definitely consult the Help Center and/or your customer experience representative. Next is capacity out of bounds indicator. This setting allows users to see a flag when a resource is allocated past their capacity end date that can be found in their capacity record. Going back, next is show empty allocation / demand as either a 0 or a dash. So that is going to define how the 0 allocations will be formatted throughout Tempus. So in, let's go back to time here under allocation grid, my 0 allocations are displayed as 0. I could also change it to be represented as a dash. All right, moving on to our last section of global tab settings. These are all about how your users are experiencing the system as far as their user sessions and login behaviors. So the user session, this is defining how long a user's session should be before the user is logged out and would need to log back in. The default is 60 minutes. In mine, I've changed it to 1,000 minutes. Locking timeout, this is the minutes of allowable inactivity prior to auto checking in any projects that were checked out by that user. So in your allocation grids and in the flat grid, you do have to have, or when you're making edits on an assignment or a project and making allocation changes, you do need to go through this check in and out process so that it's locked for you to be making those assignments and no one else can until the project is checked back in. So this setting is all about how many minutes need to expire before the project is auto checked back in. The locking timeout warning is the number of minutes prior to that auto check-in that the user would see a visual warning. Then you have settings related to minimal password length, and that is defining the minimum required if you are using custom login and password credentials. Then you have max login attempts. So this is defining the maximum number of login attempts before the user's account is locked and requires an administrator to unlock them. And last, you have project autosave. So this defines how long after a project is checked out that it should automatically save the changes made. So this wraps up part 1 of the general settings series on the global tab. Please watch the other videos in this series to review the other settings tabs here. Thanks and have a great day.